The Love Story of My Parents, Chapter 2. Between War and Family, 1950 to 1954. In 1950, Thanh Mai and the Weight of Love. By 1950, the war had already seeped into every corner of Vietnam. Saigon still glimmered with the sun, with its French cafés and colonial façades, but the city also trembled with unease. Refugees arrived daily, bringing stories of burning villages. French soldiers filled the boulevards, while whispers of Việt Minh victories circulated in tea shops and markets. For my parents, however, the greatest event of that year was not written in newspapers, but in the family ledger of life, the birth of their fifth child, Thanh Mai. The name of the flower always blooms during Tết. Already 4 children fill their mother's home with laughter, quarrels, and endless needs. Now another daughter joined the chorus. Her name meant apricot blossom, a symbol of hope and endurance in winter. Where my father held her tiny body for the first time, he whispered, "Even in the coldest times, this flower blooms. May she bloom for us." My mother, tired yet radiant, smiled. Her arms have grown strong from rocking babies and stirring broth. Her eyes lie with fatigue, but bright with quiet determination. With 5 children now, she knew every corn, every grain of rice would have to be stretched. The pho restaurant had already become the family's lifeline. Each dawn, my parents rose before the roosters. My mother tended the broth, her face glowing in the steam rising from beef bones charged with ginger and onion. She washed herbs in cold water, the scent of basil and coriander clinging to her fingertips. She prepared for the day's customer. Rickshaw drivers, hungry before their shifts, clerks in French offices, even soldiers with boots that dragged mud across the floor. The shop was more than food. It was a small theater where war and peace sat side by side. Men in crisp suits debated politics over steaming bowls of pho. Refugees traded rumors of battles for extra sprigs of lamb. Even French officers came sometimes, slurping noodles in silence while keeping one hand near their pistols. At night, when the children were finally asleep, my parents sat side by side in the quiet kitchen. Sometimes he reached across the table, taking her hand in his palm. Sometimes she leaned her head against his shoulder, both too tired to speak. Romance had changed. It was no longer found in poetry or walks by the river, but in sheer exhaustion, in silent companionship, and in the simple comfort of knowing the other was there. Outside, history roared. The same year, China recognized the Democratic Republic of Vietnam and began sending weapons to Việt Minh, while the United States increased its aid to the French. Vietnam's war had become part of the Cold War chessboard, but inside the family home, history was measured differently. in lullabies, bowl of soup, and the fragile laughter of 5 small children. 1951. Survival, the small gestures. The year of 1951 brought no relief. Instead, it deepened the struggle. The fur shop grew busier as more displaced families crowded Saigon. Many customers pay with coins, some with IOUs, and few with nothing at all. My mother sometimes served bones freely to the children who looked too thin, whispering, "When our own children are hungry, may someone do the same for them." At home, the family was a whirlwind, for all the children running about, Thanh Mai learning to walk, the parents juggling exhaustion. My mother's hair was often tied hastily, her áo dài faded, yet when my father looked at her, he still saw the young woman from the bookstore years ago. One night, as artillery rumbled faintly in the distance, he returned from closing the shop to find her dozing beside the cradle. He gently covered her with a blanket. She stirred, whispering, "We must be strong for them." He nodded, though he longed to say more. In that silence there was romance, the kind that endures not through words, but through shared resolve. The wider war grew bloodier. French forts in the countryside came under siege. Việt Minh guerrillas cut supply lines. Refugees poured into Saigon, their faces hollow. The children in the shop listened with wide eyes as adults whisper about battles and ambushes. But my parents taught their own children a different lesson. No matter how loud the words, guns, inside this home there would be love. 1952, the birth of Thanh Hoa. Then in June 1952, the sixth Joy Thanh Hoa was born. Her name meant the blue flower, was chosen with hope, though the household grew anything but quiet. Now, with 6 children, the house was always full of sound, a baby crying, toddlers quarreling, older siblings laughing and arguing. Yet somehow, amidst the chaos, the family managed. The older children began helping in the restaurant, carrying bowls, wiping tables, and running errands. Little Thanh Mai, toddler after her mother, proudly carrying herbs in her small hands, trying to mimic the grown-ups. The restaurant itself had become a kind of village square. Each day it was filled with customers bringing news. Việt Minh victories in the north, French retreats, villages destroyed. Some cursed Ho Chi Minh, others praised him. My parents learned to smile politely, never showing signs, for neutrality was survival. But beyond politics, they leave a small sacrifices. He gave up some new shirts so she could buy fabric for the children. She stayed up late patching his clothes so he wouldn't go to work in rags. These were their love letters, stitches in fabric, written in broth, whispered in exhaustion. Sometimes, after a long day, he would recite a line of poetry to her, his voice rough but tender. She would smile faintly, her eyes shining despite fatigue. And for the moment, they were again the young couple who had first met over a book with missing pages. May 1933, Thanh Tòng and a Pillar of Strength. In 1953, the seventh joy arrived, Thanh Tòng, named for strength. By then, the family had learned to balance on the edge of chaos. The first shop was busier than ever, with so many mouths to feed at home. Every bone matters. Oldest children worked beside their parents, while the younger ones crawl under the table or nap in hammocks strung behind the kitchen. The war escalated further. The French launched the Navarre plan, hoping to lure the Việt Minh into open battle. Rumors of a fortress being built in the far north, a place called Điện Biên Phủ, circulated even in Saigon. Soldiers argued in restaurants, their voices sharp. Customers leaned close, whispering predictions of either triumph or disaster. The Navarre plan was a French military strategy developed by General Henry Navarre in 1953 to achieve an honorable political solution to the First Indochina War by retaking the initiative from the Việt Minh, launching a major offensive in Tonkin and building up Vietnamese national forces to take over the fight. The plan aimed to crush the main communist forces by the end of the 1955 fighting season, with the United States providing significant financial and material aid to France. However, the plan largely failed to achieve its objectives, ultimately contributing to the French defeat at Điện Biên Phủ. Inside the family, tempers are flared from exhaustion, money was scarce, nights were sleepless, and sometimes quarrels erupted, but always reconciliation followed. He brewed tea silently after arguments and set the cup before her at a peace offering. She sewed patches into his shirt as her quiet forgiveness. Their love was not without conflict, but it was stronger than conflict. One night, after closing the shop, he took her hand and whispered, "Even pillars can crack, but together we stand stronger." She squeezed his hands in reply, her silence full of love. 1954, Điện Biên Phủ and a new chapter. 1954 came with a thunder. In March, the Battle of Điện Biên Phủ began. For weeks, Saigon burst with rumors. French soldiers trapped, Việt Minh artillery pounding day and night. Each customer in the restaurant had a different story, each more dramatic than the last. The air was electric with fear and anticipation. Amidst this, in late November of 1954, my parents welcomed their eighth joy, Thanh Loan, the blue phoenix. Her birth symbolized renewal, hope rising from ashes. As her first cries filled the home, the nation itself seemed to be crying, ready to be reborn. In 1954, the news came Điện Biên Phủ had fallen. The French, long thought invincible, had been defeated by the Việt Minh forces in Saigon. Some cheer, some tremble, but all knew history had shifted. The Geneva Conference soon divided the nation at the 17th parallel, north under Ho Chi Minh, south under the new Republic of Vietnam. Families were torn apart. Refugees from the north poured southward. The country was split, fragile and uncertain. For my family, the moment was bittersweet. 8 children now fill the home, each representing both burden and blessing. The pho restaurant still provided through times were uncertain. And then came the personal turning point. My father was offered a new job, a totally different career, a very noble job in the veterinary department in Dalat. A chance for us more stability, though it meant preparing to leave Saigon in the coming years of Dalat. It was both hope and heartbreak. Hope for steadier future, heartbreak for the city and community they had built. At night, as the children slept, my parents lay awake, whispering of plans that Dalat, the city of mist, mountains, pine trees, sounded like another world. Could their children find peace there? Could love grow more freely away from the heat and chaos of Saigon? My father looked at my mother and said softly, "We survived this war. We will survive the move. Wherever we move, as long as we are together, it will be home." She smiled through weary eyes, resting her head against his chest. Outside, Saigon burst with change. Inside, their love was unshaken. Closing chapter 2. From 1950 to 1954, my parents lived through war, poverty, and exhaustion. Yet they also lived through births, laughter, and love. Their first shop fed not just their children, but also their neighbors, their community, even strangers caught in the ties of history. History recorded generals and treaties, but my family's history was written in quieter lines, the steam rising from broth at dawn, the cries of newborns, the stitches of áo dài, the wary but tender glance between husband and wife. And as the guns fell silent at Điện Biên Phủ, as Vietnam stepped into a new and divided era, my family also stepped into the new chapter, preparing to leave Saigon to seek another beginning in Dalat. Through it all, one truth endured: romance was not destroyed by war. It was transformed into resilience, into daily acts of care, into unspoken vow. We will survive together. End of chapter 2, to be continued.